The longtime head of the National Rifle Association is resigning. Just days before the start of a New York civil trial that's poised to scrutinize his leadership of the powerful gun rights organization. Today is Saturday, January 6th, 2024, and this is the Dunkley Report. The longtime head of the National Rifle Association is resigning just days before the start of a New York civil trial that's poised to scrutinize his leadership of the powerful gun rights organization. A trial in New York, Attorney General Letitia James's lawsuit against the NRA, LaPierre and others who have served as organization executives, is scheduled to start on Monday. LaPierre is among the witnesses expected to testify. James, a Democrat, accuses LaPierre and other executives of illegally diverting tens of millions of dollars from the NRA and spending organization funds on personal trips, no-show contracts, and other questionable expenditures. Migrants are arriving in the U.S. under the Biden administration's new safe mobility offices set up in Colombia, Guatemala, Costa Rica, and Ecuador. The idea is to streamline the U.S. refugee process so migrants don't give up and pay smugglers to make the journey north. Since the initiative began last summer, there have been roughly 9,000 approvals, and the White House says 3,000 refugees have come to the U.S., but it's hardly made a dent in illegal crossings at the U.S.-Mexico border. There were more than 10,000 arrests per day over many days in December. The leader of the Lebanese militia, Hezbollah, says his group must retaliate after a presumed Israeli strike hit a Beirut neighborhood this week, killing a senior Hamas official. Without a response, Hassan Nasrallah said all of Lebanon would be vulnerable to Israeli attack. He appeared to be making the case for a response to the Lebanese public, even at the risk of escalating the fighting between Hezbollah and Israel. But he gave no indication of how or when the militants would act. The strike that killed Hamas's deputy political leader threatened months of efforts by the United States to prevent the war in Gaza from spiraling into a regional conflict. Federal officials have cleared the way for Florida to begin importing cheaper prescription drugs from Canada. It's the first time any U.S. state has used the approach and follows years of frustration with U.S. drug prices. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed the plan into law in 2019, but it required approval by the Food and Drug Administration. Importing cheaper drugs has long been popular with patients and consumer groups, but faced years of pushback by the pharmaceutical industry. The politics of the issue have shifted in recent years. Both President Biden and former President Trump supported importing medications to help lower costs. A light earthquake has shaken a wide area of Southern California. The U.S. Geological Survey says the quake struck at 10:55 a.m. Friday. After several revisions, the magnitude was set at 4.2. The quake was centered about a mile northwest of Little Creek in the San Gabriel Mountains, about 45 miles east of downtown Los Angeles. Such a quake is typically not strong enough to cause significant damage, and the Los Angeles Fire Department says it has no immediate reports of damage to buildings or infrastructure. Veteran seismologist Lucy Jones says the quake occurred in Cajon Pass, where the San Andreas and San Jacinto faults come together. Iowa principal, critically injured in a school shooting, put himself in harm's way as he tried to protect students from the teenage gunman. State authorities said Perry High School principal Dan Marburger and other staffers and students were wounded in the Thursday morning shooting that left one sixth-grade student dead. The 17-year-old student who opened fire also died of an apparent self-inflicted gunshot. On Friday, crime tape still lined the campus that Perry High School shares with the town's middle school. Many memorials have cropped up, and classes across the school district are canceled in favor of counseling. House Republicans plan to move forward next week with holding Hunter Biden in contempt of Congress after President Joe Biden's son defied a congressional subpoena to appear for a private deposition last month. The Republicans who lead the House Oversight and Accountability Committee and the Judiciary Committee announced Friday that they will hold votes on contempt charges against Hunter Biden as the GOP moves into the final stages of its impeachment inquiry. If the committees approve the charges, the full House would get a final vote. Hunter Biden has slammed the GOP-issued subpoena for closed-door testimony and has insisted he'd only testify in public. Attorney General Merrick Garland said Friday that more than 500 gun purchases have been blocked since a new gun law requiring stricter background checks for young people went into effect in 2022. The bipartisan law passed in June 2022 was the most sweeping gun legislation in decades and requires extra checks for any gun purchases by people under age 21. The news comes the day after a school shooting in Iowa left a sixth grader dead. The Justice Department says people denied gun purchases include someone convicted of rape and a suspect in an attempted murder case. President Joe Biden said the news was an important milestone and called for additional measures. The nation's employers added a robust 216,000 jobs last month, the latest sign that the American labor market remains resilient even in the face of sharply higher interest rates. A December's job gain exceeded the 173,000 that were added in November. The unemployment rate was unchanged at 3.7%, the 23rd straight month that joblessness has come in below 4%. Some details of the report, though, may disappoint the inflation fighters at the Federal Reserve, who might now be inclined to delay any cuts in their benchmark interest rate. Still, taken as a whole, the December jobs report reflected a healthy economy with steady job growth, rising wages, and cooling inflation. The flu season in the U.S. is getting worse, with 38 states reporting high or very high levels for respiratory illnesses. That's up from 31 states the week before, but it's too soon to tell how much holiday gatherings contributed to a likely spike in illnesses. The government data posted Friday is for the week after Christmas. That measure likely includes people with COVID-19, RSV, and other winter viruses, and not just flu. But officials say flu seems to be increasing most dramatically and will for another few weeks. So far, it has been deemed a moderate flu season. Today's news was reported by the Associated Press. This has been the World News for Saturday, January 6th, 2024. Thanks again for joining us at The Dunkley Report.